Okay, y'all, it's late and I should be asleep, but I just saw this and it made me really happy. This is Celine Song. She's the director of the movie Materialists, which I reviewed a little while ago, maybe about a month ago. Gave a positive review of, and but I feel even more positive towards it after this brief interview, which I'm going to play for y'all. Um, so it seems that people, by people, we're talking about mainly, I think, women, mainly Western feminists, have apparently, I wasn't aware of this, but they apparently were hating on this movie because they said it promoted broke boy propaganda. What happens in the movie is the main character is a woman. She's works for a matchmaking business, and she has she meets one guy who seems ideal, who seems perfect uh, on paper, but and he's very wealthy, but she's still in love with her boyfriend, who is struggling to get by. Um, and she broke up with him a while ago, and and she essentially admits. I mean, it's complicated, like all relationships are, but she essentially admits at one point that she broke up with him because it just wasn't practical. That he was not make that he was just a starving actor, just somebody trying to get by, and you know uh, having trouble, and that even though she loved him, she was, you know she turned him down. She ended their relationship, and now she realizes that after she's met this other man who seems great on paper, uh, and he is wealthy, and he would be a good provider for her, but that but she still is in she eventually opts to go back to the broke guy. And uh and so, when I saw the movie, I thought, this is kind of refreshing in a way. This is different from what we're seeing, different from what we're hearing these days. Men struggling to get by, women most affected. Those kinds of headlines that we see in our wonderful propaganda machines, our wonderful newspapers and news sites, legacy media sites, and whatnot. But anyway, this is her responding to this criticism here, and it's a beautiful response. Let's hear it.
I did read one letterbox review comment though that really made me laugh, that said, not Celine promoting broke men in this economy, which really made me laugh. What do you think of that?
Well, thank you for asking me about it. I think that it doesn't make me laugh because it really is disappointing to me that I think that there is a very real confusion about feminism and then the history of feminism. I think that because through intersectionality, so much of feminism has been about anti-corporate and then anti-capitalist. And of course, it was always on the forefront of fighting classism. So I'm very concerned about the way that we talk about people who are poor. And I think the thing that's very important to me is to stress that poverty is not the fault of the poor. And I think that given that, it is very brutal. I find it very cruel to talk about John as a character who loves Lucy and who is a beautiful character being played beautifully by Chris, and to talk about him as in such cruel terms as broke boy or broke man. I think that there is something about that, the classism of that, the kind of like hatred of poverty, hatred of poor people, who's, again, it's not their fault that they're poor. I think that that is a very troubling result of the way that the wealthy people have, gotten into our hearts about how it's your fault if you're poor and you're a bad person if you're poor. So I think it doesn't make me laugh actually, it just makes me feel very concerned that anybody would talk about my movie and my characters and then to really think about it in such classist terms. Even the whole movie is about fighting the way that capitalism is trying to colonize our hearts and colonize love.
Okay.
I did.
Okay, so she uses a lot of leftist jargon there, but what she's essentially saying is that this is a move that she's really troubled by and I think angered by. She doesn't use the word angered, but it seems to be what she's essentially expressing. That this is a character. This is a movie which has this good guy. You know, he's flawed, but he's essentially a good person, but he just isn't wealthy. And she's talking about capitalism and classism and colonizing our hearts, using a lot of this sort of leftist jargon and lingo. But what she's saying is that it's really concerning that that people watch this movie and get angry that she chooses the broke boy, that the broke man, that the heroine ought to find a man who's wealthy, who's rich, and and I again, in spite of there's a lot to like superficially. If you watch this interview and took it just superficially and just thought, oh, these are a bunch of leftist talking points, you might not see what she's actually saying, but it's a wonderful thing. It's really I'm moved. It's just so, it happens so, there's so few times you see that you see a woman who is in a powerful position like this, a director of a Hollywood movie. She started out in Korea, but Materialists has A-list actors in it, and a Hollywood budget, but she still has, she doesn't hate men. She doesn't just see a guy who's struggling and just think, oh girl, you can do better than that, and that's what, and she's really, although she doesn't say it, she as much as says that she's really troubled that this is what feminism has become in the West. We would, of course, I would argue with her whether feminism was ever a good thing in any context. But then that of course gets a little tedious, because then the question is, how do you define feminism, and blah blah blah. But let's give her some credit here. Let's give Celine Song, the director of Materialists, some credit for really taking a ballsy position, taking a pro-male, broke guy position, in the midst of this culture that's that really is ugly and materialistic, and encourages women to be their very worst, all too often, and men as well. Let's give her credit where it's due. So kudos to you, Celine Song. Thank you so much.